Dear two chicks in walking shoes with frizzy hair and smelly armpits, I am most proud of both of you for doing all the legwork for the rest of us. I'm going to tell you a story to brighten your day and hopefully make you smile each time you think of it on your 3-day journey. In times of hurt and pain, I want you to let this story from my childhood lift your spirits, creep deep into your imagination, and bring out your inner child. Well, y'all know about my love for dogs, but what you didn't know is that dogs were not a pet to be had in my house growing up. Mama would not allow such a 4-footed critter in the house, what with fleas and all, but we were allowed to harbor any type of rodent, being as how it would be living in a cage, and let me tell you, there ain't nothing like squeezing a gerbil when you need a hug on a bad day. When I was about age 7, I had me a pet hamster named Barney, and our house was so cold, 'cause sometimes we had heat and sometimes we didn't, that on a frigid December evening when I went to say goodnight to him just before jumping into bed, I saw him laying there atop his mini bale of hay just as lifeless as could be. His legs were stiff as a board. Oh, God, it just about broke my heart. I wrapped him in toilet paper, 'cause we couldn't afford luxuries like paper towels. I took my next day's school lunch out of the bag that Mama had so carefully packed, 'cause we couldn't afford lunch boxes neither. Then lay Barney gently inside the bag and placed it on the side of my bed. I started to cry myself to sleep. After all, this was my first pet loss. Then, about an hour later, the bag started to rustle, and having a hearing problem, I was not sure if I actually heard it. But sure enough, a few seconds later, there was another rustle, and when I peeked over the bedside, I saw that little brown bag just a-moving back and forth. I was so scared, I closed my eyes real tight and put my pointer finger in my good ear so as not to hear the rustle, and I just prayed and prayed. But for what, I wasn't exactly sure. Then slowly, I lifted the bag off the floor and placed it onto my lap, where I gently started to unfold its edges. The bag moved again, and I had to take some deep breaths to keep my heart from popping out my mouth. I skillfully slid the long strand of toilet paper, 'cause who knows, I might have had to use it later that night, and unraveled the hamster ever so softly. He was alive! He must have gotten some type of hamster hypothermia, and the warm toilet paper and the bag thawed him just enough to pull him through. So it was really, really heartbreaking right then when the damn thing chopped down on my pinky finger so hard it made me fling him across the room with such force that his little body smashed against the wall. He hit the floor with such a thud I could hardly believe it. Round about that time, Mama called up the steps. She must have seen my light on. "Sally, what's that commotion? What you doing up there?" "Nothing, Mama," I replied, and I quickly grabbed that hamster up the floor and tossed him into the heating vent, then jumped back into bed before Mama sent Daddy up after me. Days later, the smell of that damn hamster started wafting through the heating system, making every room in the house just stink so bad that we all felt sick. "What in the hell is that damn smell anyway?" Mama asked. "Mama," I said, "I think it's Daddy's shoes drying over there on the heating vent, making the whole house just smell nasty." We couldn't afford no clothes dryer, so everything went on a heating vent or in the oven. You see, my daddy was a butcher, and every night he walked home from work with blood-filled clothes and raw meat stuck to the soles of his shoes, which made him the envy of every dog in the neighborhood. Mama walked over to the heating vent and picked up Daddy's shoes and gave him a big sniff. Of course, with the heater being on full blast, anything that lay over them would smell like that damn hamster. "Well, I be," Mama said, "sure enough it's coming from these shoes." It was just about that time that I was given the chore to clean the raw meat off Daddy's shoes every night when he came home from work. Oh, I hated that damn hamster so much after that, I didn't shed a tear for him. Come the summertime, when the temperature hit about 95 degrees in the shade, my daddy and I took a ride to the fishing creek, because sometimes we had a car and sometimes we didn't. But since the fish wasn't biting and it was so dang hot, we headed for home. Daddy said he needed to make a quick stop at the local tavern for a beer, and a glass of beer back then was only 10 cents. So I sat out in that hot car waiting for him what seemed like hours and hours, almost passing out in that damn car. He must have forgot about me, so I walked home. 10 minutes later, while I was sitting on the porch steps, he pulled into the driveway, and he just saw me sitting there looking all hot and sad and stuff, so he rolled down his window and he shouted, "Hey, Tiger!" Daddy always called me Tiger after a beer or two. "Here's your new pet." I looked up at the car with such delight, thinking surely I was well deserving of a puppy, but when the car door opened, a rooster done flown out. I named that rooster Henry, which seemed fitting at the time. Why, I don't know, but I'll be damned if that rooster didn't know his name within a week of being with us. And one day, my neighbor, who would clip Henry's wings so he couldn't fly away, brought him over to the hedge and called out to me, "Sally?" "Yes, sir, Mr. H," I replied. "This here rooster," he yelled as he held Henry high above the hedges, "he needs a new name." "Why's that?" I asked. "He knows his name is Henry just fine." "'Cause," said Mr. H, "he's just gone and laid an egg on top of Gary's bicycle seat right there in my shed. This here is a chicken, not a rooster." So that was that. I changed Henry's name to Henrietta, and she was the best damn pet chicken a kid could ever have. She didn't much answer to her new name though, so later on down the road, I started calling her Henry again, and she continued to lay eggs on many a bicycle seat over the years. Why she did it on bicycle seats, I don't know. Maybe 'cause her wings wouldn't let her fly any higher. Then, on a bright sunny morning, Daddy came into my room looking all sad like. "Tiger," he said in a solemn voice, "I'm afraid Henrietta has died. We'll need to bury her right quick." So on a hot sunny morning, when the neighborhood kids was getting ready for church and they was all dressed up in their Sunday best, they all gathered round and said goodbye to Henry, while my brothers and I wrapped her up in toilet paper and buried her right there by the leaking cesspool in the backyard. It seemed only fitting to bury her there, since she was already dressed in toilet paper. Later that day, since I was so sad 'cause of Henry dying and all, my daddy said I could have my best friend come on over and spend the night. So I picked my best friend Dory, and don't you know that Daddy made us the most delicious dinner ever? Yes, ma'am. That was the best damn pet chicken a kid could ever have.